Uh, let's get the general concept first about writing a statement of research problem before going to our next uh, session of analysis. We said writing a statement of research problem. A good researcher statement or a good research statement makes clear to the reader what issue the research is dealing with. A good research statement makes clear to the reader what issue the research is dealing with. Ideally, a research statement should be presented in one sentence. A research problem statement is to the point, focused, and measurable. It is not ambiguous and abstract. Uh, Now we get the clear picture. What does a statement of research problem shows? Why should it be simple, focused, straight to the point, measurable, and it should not be ambiguous and abstract? In formulating uh, this problem statement, first you should describe the nature of the problem. As we said, there is no research if there is no base of a problem. Something must have been happened for someone to research, finding the cause of the problem that you see. So describe the nature of the problem. What is the discrepancy between what is and what you prefer the situation to be? Magnitude, size of data needed. And when it comes to distribution, it's when coming to mind who is affected, where and when. Severity, intensity of the consequences. Uh, let's see this general concept in preparation of the statement of the problem. We say statement state the possible contributing factor and how they might lead to the problem. For example, you have seen a problem somewhere and you don't know what are the causative of that problem. Got it? Then you come to the contributing factor which causes what? The problem. This factor may be one or what? Two, three, and more. And actually, when we go back, when we read about something about variables, are we getting? These factors actually are the variables, which are the causative of what? Of that problem. Do we get the point? So first, you have to list them first and explain how each could lead to the problem. For example, with each variable, how does it relate to the problem? So state efforts done previously to solve the problem and effects, measures taken and outcome of the measures. This is very important. We are not just seeing the problem and say that's a problem. So as long as far as research concerned, is to find what caused this problem to happen. Are we getting? And when we find the problem, which means we find the causative factors or the variables which interact to cause a certain problem to appear. So start the effort done previously to solve the problem and the effects. What we say is start the effort done previous to solve the problem and the effect. For example, you've seen the problem. Maybe it is not the first time for you to see the problem. Other people, they have seen that problem before. Maybe they have done their research. They mentioned their factors which are the causative of the problem, but maybe not all factors are being mentioned as a contributing factor to the problem. I get it. But you as a new researcher, you have to go back and see how others have done. What were their findings? So we get it. What were the factors? And that actually is what we call the literature review. And we're going to see what a literature review is. So when you list them first and explain how which could lead to the problem, and then you have to start the effort done previously to solve the problem and the effects. the effort done previously to solve this problem. And actually, if you see this problem persist, which means maybe the factor reduced to some extent, or the factor were not right at all. That's why research is criticized by a researcher, or research is criticized by a research. Uh, let's see selection of a research problem. At the outset of your research, make sure you have identified a worthwhile problem which has not been previously answered. Since research is always about some problems, identification and selection of this problem is most crucial in designing research proposal. Why are we saying this? For example, I've done a research on a setting matter A. Are you getting it? And I gave the causative factor A, B, C, D. And you come and you want to do the same research giving the same result. That is not research. So your problem must convince, must attract. Why are you doing that research? Or is there any necessity of you to sit down and do that research? Uh, that is the part which I wanted you to get into your mind, because a problem of statement is what push a researcher in doing research. If you can't construct this problem of the statement, you cannot write a good statement of the problem, or you cannot extract a good statement of the problem from the problem that you have seen. It's very difficult when it comes in writing your research proposal, or actually you'll be hanging in whatever you're planning to do. So, a problem can be stated in the form of explicit or an implicit question. When we say explicit or an implicit question, let's see examples. Example, when we say the study examined whether students taught by direct method achieved higher reading score than those taught by communicative approach. You get it? That is your research. Then you want to know your performance when you are in class and your performance when you're online classes. Are you getting it? So the problem with this statement is to start or to examine whether students taught by direct method achieved higher reading score than those taught by communicative approach. So your problem statement should be this way. The study examined whether students taught by direct method achieved higher reading score than those taught by communicative approach. And this is implicit questions. But when it comes to a form of a question, for example, what is the relationship between motivation and achievement? We call it an explicit question. I hope we understand the concept of the problem of statement, because today we're going to see our session 9, the analysis and the statement of the problem. Analysis and statement of the problem, our session 9. And at the end of this session, I'm expected you to be able to identify factors contributed to the problem. I'm expecting you to be able to identify factors contributed to the problem, clarify the relationship between the problem and the contributing factors. You should be able to decide on the scope and focus of the research. You should be able to formulate the problem statement. You should be able to prepare the statement of the problem. Let us see the factor contributed to the problem. The facts are contributed to the problem. In this manner, you should list all the problems. All the problems which you think they are causative of the problem should be listed. And later you specify and describe the core problem. All might be problem, but some can be neglected. There are core problem that caused or made that problem to happen. So you should then try to identify the core problem and quantify it. You should then try to identify the core problem and quantify it. From many that you have mentioned, you have to select the core problem, which are suspected to be the causative of what? Of the problem. And from there you quantify how many problems or whatever. So analyzing the problem is very crucial step in designing the research, because analyzing the problem is very crucial step in designing the research because it enables those concerned to pull their knowledge of the problem. Enables those concerned to pull their knowledge of the problem, clarify the problem and the possible factors that may be contributing to it, facilitate decision concerning the focus and scope of the research. For example, let's go to the environment we're in now. When this COVID-19 happened, what did they do? You know, actually, they have seen patients suffering from a certain disease. After seeing patients suffering from a certain disease, then it's from there. And they started extracting what exactly caused the disease to happen. I get it. And from knowing where the causative of the disease, then they knew what is the preventive measures which should be taken to each an environment in which there is a living being, example, specifically human being. Are you getting? And this is what they did. This is what they say: if you do A, B, C, D, or if you take these measures, it's so simple for you to get what? To be contaminated or to get infected with this disease. So, there wouldn't be all those ways if they were not what we call a problem analysis. That's why you say analyzing the problem is very crucial step in designing the research, because it enables those concerned to put their knowledge of the problem. But it also clarifies the problem and the possible factors that may contribute to it. It facilitates decision concerning to focus and the scope of the research. Are we getting the point? After identifying the core problem, you should identify factors that may have contributed to the problem. After identifying the core problem, you should identify factors that may have contributed to the problem. Because now you know what is the major problem. The major problem is the disease. Then what is the factor contributed to the problem? What are the factor contributed to the problem? What is the causative of the problem? I get it. Okay, now the problem is COVID-19, an infectious disease caused by a coronavirus. Now, what identify the factor that had contributed to the problem? Now, we have so many factors. The area where we can find viruses and the living style of the human being, or the lifestyle of the human being. It can be a contributed factor to the problem. So after getting the contributor factor to the problem, clarify the relationship between the problem and the contributing factors. The problem and the contributing factors. Clarify the relationship between the problem and the contributing factors. It helps to visualize this interrelationship in the form of a diagram. The basic principle of constructing such a diagram are illustrated below. As you can see, there are factors. Then how does this factor relate to a problem? Do we get it? So in every problem that you have seen, There are factors which are contributing. And how does this factor relate to the problem? That is very important in giving the clarification. That's why we say you should clarify the relationship between the problem and the contributing factors. If there is no relationship between the contributing factor and the problem, which means still the problem is there, but you don't know what causes the problem, or what is the contributing factor of the problem. I get it. That's why you may list many factors, but not all of them that should be included into the list. Or we may see the problem and listing them down many, but what is the core problem? So our diagram is like this. You try to number the contributing factor, then and how do they relate it to the problem. And then identify further contributing factor. Extend the problem analysis diagram further by identifying additional factors that could have contributed to aggravated the problem, which means the factors are not only two, there may be 3, 4, 10, even to 20 plus 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 plus. I hope you get the point. So the diagram may expand according to the factors that has been found by a researcher. So it may be possible to identify several generations of predisposing factors by asking, but why? Now you have seen the problem, but why? So organize related factors together into larger categories and develop final draft diagram. You have to organize those factors which are related into categories. If these 3 are related, put them together. If 10 are related, put them together. So for example, main researcher group contributing factor into 4 main categories. For example, many of the researchers group contributing factors into 4 main categories. And we come to these main 4 categories, say sociocultural factors, economic factors, service-related factors, or disease-related factors. So you may group your factors according to these categories: sociocultural factors, economic factors, service-related factors, and disease-related factor. Actually, we're gonna see an example of this later or soon or later. Sociocultural factor, economic factor, service-related factor, disease-related factor. Or it might be your assignment if you understood the concept. We get it. For example, let's do a research an assignment on this corona virus pandemic. And you have to mention the factors which contributed to it, to the problem, and categorize them into sociocultural factors, economic factors, service-related factors, and disease-related factors. Let's start from the actual example of what we see now. So let's see the relationship between the problem and the contributing factors. The relationship between contributing factors and the problem can be indicated by arrows. One-way arrow for cause-effect relationship, cause-effect relationship, or two-way arrow for mutual relationship. The core problem, when we say two-way arrow for mutual relationship, for example, you can see when we go back to our diagram, we can see the factor causing the problem, but as if the factor's effect brought a problem, but the problem does not make anything to add to a factor. And when you refer back to our variables, we said variable and the effect. Are we getting? Maybe the change of A caused the decrease of B. The change of B. Maybe when A rise, B decrease. or when A increase, B increase. Are we getting? We should see this is mutual relationship, and the arrow show. For example, in this factor and this factor, they have what the effect is, but the type of arrow which have been used here shows the mutual relationship in which has been mentioned here. Two ways arrow for mutual relationship. So the core problem can be identified by drawing a double line around it. The core problem can be identified by drawing a double line around it. Note that many of the perceived problem mentioned in step 1 are related to each other in a cause-effect relationship. Note that many of the perceived problems mentioned in step 1 are related to each other in cause-effect relationship. Example, poor management of complication from abortion and high complication rate from abortion, or in a mutual relationship, stigma on induced abortion and secrets surrounding induced abortion. Let's see the scope and focus of the research. Scoping is figuring out what exactly to explore for a start. Decide on the focus and scope of the research. Not necessary to research on all factors if there are too many. When I say not necessary to research on all factors if too many, that's why we do that selection of the core factors to run with or to research. This is a very little concept, but because it is related to problem of statement, I had to start there to get the concept, then coming here in finding the core problem and the factors and what are the relationship. That was the main thing that I wanted us to find in our lesson 9. And the key point, many researchers group contributing factors into 4 main categories: socio-cultural, economic factor, service-related factors, and disease-related factors. The core problem can be identified by drawing a double line around it. Formulation of the problem statement is derived from analysis of the problem. The way you analyze the problem is where you draw the problem statement. These are some few questions for you. You can take it as your homework evaluation. What factors contributing to the problem? What is the relationship between the problem and contributing factors? This is our first lesson in the morning. I know today we have 2 sessions. But there we said what about a literature review. So I don't want to speak now of literature review because this is our session 10. We are going to cover the literature review. Why? Because we said when you see the problem, then you have to find out where this problem before. What were the factors if someone did their researches or their research before? What were the factors contributing to the problem? You get it? Thus you have to go back and see so that to avoid doing the same thing. If you think there is something that more they should have done and they didn't do, that is what actually pushed you to do that research or to run that research, and doesn't bring any problem or cause, because you read to review what they have done before, and you maybe you start from a point where they have ended. Maybe there are some important contributing factor which they have been neglecting and now made this problem persist. So thank you for your time. This is our lesson 9.